Welcome to the first official Moviecom podcast, and this is our first podcast, so we'll see how this goes and see where it goes. But anyways, welcome to the thing. Tonight we're talking about, The Dark Knight Rises, and obviously it's the last movie in the Christopher Nolan trilogy, and it's going to be a good day. With me I have Jonathan Benfield. Oh, my name is Kyle Peters, by the way. We also have Dave Atherton, who is a bit of a comic book aficionado. Do we prefer that term than geek?
Aficionado?
What do you want to be called? Whatever. I'm not an English major. And also in the house we have the ranter. His name will remain anonymous. Alright, okay, so I don't know how many times we've all seen it. I've seen it twice. John, you've seen it twice now. Once. Okay, I think we might have another couple of walk-ins coming in to join us in this podcast a bit later. But basically, yeah, this is going to be a spoiler podcast. So the guys who are joining us, if you haven't watched it, turn it off now, go watch it, and then come back. Because otherwise we're going to ruin the whole movie for you.
We'll ruin a lot for you.
We'll ruin a heck of a lot for you. Yes, we will. There'll also be many Bane impersonations, I'm sure, on this podcast. But cool, let's just jump right in. Let's just chat about the story, the plot line, what this movie ended up being. Obviously, being a trilogy, everyone has their opinions on the third part of a trilogy. It could have gone in any directions. Before we even critique on the direction, on how they did the direction they went, what did everyone think of the direction they took it, actually? The storyline, the 8 years later, all that kind of stuff. Any thoughts on that?
I thought they did quite a good job. I didn't think it was terrible. My first initial thoughts.
Didn't think it was terrible. Beautiful.
I thought they rounded the story off very well. I mean, to round off a trilogy like this, and to introduce new characters without it being super, super cheesy, they did a good job. And they brought in a whole bunch of new characters. Very hard to do that. And to round it all off. They did a good job.
Okay, I dispute the characters. I think some of the characters are cheesy, but we'll get to the characters later. But story-wise, I think the 8 years later was a nice touch. I had some issues with the fact that I felt like Batman wasn't in the movie, most of it.
I agree with that very thoroughly.
But
I featured a lot.
But otherwise, I think generally they did a good job, especially when you compare it to something like Lord of the Rings, which has been written as a book already, the story, the ending's been thought out beforehand. I don't know if Nolan necessarily did that, or maybe he wrote this after Dark Knight, and then in which case I think he did a very good job.
Cool.
I think I enjoyed the story. I think in comparison to Dark Knight and Batman Begins, this story is a lot more ambitious in comparison to what Nolan's done. I think there's a lot more involved in it. There's a lot more characters, a lot more plot, a lot more just everything that he tried to incorporate, I think, into, what was it, almost 3 hours probably? Like, I think he pulled it off, but I think there were some flaws. Just, I think because he tried to maybe incorporate a little bit too much into the entire story as a comparison to the simplicity yet brilliance of the first two.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you guys. I think Dark Knight was a much more clear, focused kind of story, whereas this had a lot of elements to it.
Yeah, trying to touch on
it tried to touch on a lot of things, and as it had a lot of characters. But in the end, I think I actually, my first viewing, I just really loved it. It was, I don't know, it worked for me. The 8 years later, I've heard a lot of guys complaining on some threads and stuff online that we feel that when you look at the whole trilogy, it seemed that Batman, it was only Batman for like 1.5 years of his entire life, sort of thing, and that's not a very long Dark Knight thing. But I think it's its own take on the story. It's its own version of it, and that's cool. There's Dave knows more than me, but there's different variations of the comics, and there's lots of different stories and lots of different storylines in the comics and different interpretations in the films throughout the years. And this is its own one, and it's a more realistic one, and I think it worked.
I think that the ranter brought up the fact that Batman's not featured a lot. But I think what was clear from The Dark Knight Rises, especially when I watched it for the second time, I think it's good to watch it twice. But what I picked up is just also the handing, we'll get to it, but the handing over of the kind of mantle, as it were. Is mantle the right word?
Yeah.
The torch.
And just the fact that he mentions Bruce Wayne, or Batman, whatever you want to call him, he mentions that anybody can be Batman when he's talking in the car.
That was the key thing.
That was the idea, is that it's just about somebody taking responsibility, and he wanted to create the symbol. He didn't want to create the person behind the mask. Yeah. So his thing was creating Batman, the symbol, and that stands for so many different things, and the iconography of that. And the idea was that anybody could step into those shoes. So in some ways, that was that handing over in this film, where he was quite weak as a person, but the symbol of Batman always stood like strong, from people's point of view. So in some ways, there was that kind of, actually, I'm not featuring as much here because I'm handing this thing over, and then you get Joseph Gordon-Levitt stepping in to take that role.
I think the second time I watched it, we'll get it. I think the second time I watched it last night, that car scene stuck out to me now, and I was like, that now it's, there's been, complaints of, Bruce Wayne, Batman, he is Batman, how can he not be Batman, blah, 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 blah. When you actually watch the movie now through that lens, it's actually quite clear where they're going. And I think it's been like that since Batman Begins. Batman Begins, he's on the plane, he's coming back to Gotham after 7 years, and he says, as a man, I'm indestructible, but as a symbol, God, and he's constantly hitting on the symbol, the persona of Batman.
But I think that's what makes the story so interesting, is that they work with the fragility of this person trying to be this superhero. Yeah. So, that's a consistent kind of dialogue, or like at least the inner dialogue that he has of this, like, I'm a faulty person, I'm really angry, I'm fearful in whatever different ways. But at the same time, he's this amazing, upstanding symbol that he raises up himself within the city.
Yeah.
And that, for me, was quite interesting, how they explored that in the storyline and throughout the whole trilogy.
Yeah.
And just the idea of standing, what are you standing for? And always those things were conflicting along the way. The first one, Ra's al Ghul, was conflicting. The second one, the Joker, was challenging that, saying that people just want to have fun. They want to mess around. They don't care about order, whatever it is. And in a similar way to the third one as well, where the League of Shadows return. So I felt like it really explored those areas really well, and it came together. It brought those three together well as well. And I think we miss that. We think, action superhero, when he's Batman, that's when the stuff really counts. But Nolan kind of turned that around. It's actually
in his absence.
It's in Batman's absence where you see what the reality is.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think almost this film, not mostly from the absence of Batman within the film, but it almost seemed like the redemption of Bruce Wayne. Kind of like it wasn't, I don't really see it focused on Batman itself more than like it did as Bruce Wayne as a character trying to get back to the point where he becomes Batman. Where he's ready to be Batman again. Like, he's weak, he goes to that little issues I have with like the healing process, with a little brace on his knee. I don't know, maybe we'll get that later, things I find faulty with that. But then, I don't know, it's just, Batman, I would say with a 3-hour film, Batman accumulatively was maybe half an hour of the film. Half an hour, 45 minutes. Which means, for a film titled about the main character almost, it was a very brief point. I don't know, I felt it was like, Bruce Wayne's weak in the beginning, he becomes Batman briefly, he gets broken, goes to prison, trains, comes back as Batman. I just felt, more accurately, maybe the film should be called The Redemption of Bruce Wayne.
That's
a catchy title.
I read something online, which I thought I'd bring. Who rises? In the title, it's Dark Knight Rises, but Batman, no one ever rose. I mean, technically, Bruce Wayne rose from the pit at the end, but I mean, that wasn't really much, I think, or is that what they're referring to?
But now, just remember, when you're talking about Batman and Bruce Wayne, as a person, they're the same thing, right? So, you know what I'm saying? You're taking the same person and making them into two different people, whereas I'm saying it's a person and it's a symbol. So it's always Bruce Wayne, who is also Batman. The person behind the mask, whether he's doing it without a mask on or he's doing it with a mask on. Yeah. The reason why he wears the mask, besides creating the whole symbol thing, is that his identity is to be hidden. Yeah. So it doesn't mean he's a different person, or like, you know what I mean? Like, if Bruce Wayne's doing it, it's the same thing as if the Batman, the person, is doing it.
Fair enough.
As far as I'm concerned. So I mean, him conquering his own personal fears, and that's Batman doing that as well.
Fair enough.
Do you think it might have been a dual thing? Like, you got the whole Bruce Wayne as Batman story as one. So this maybe not contradicting what you're saying, but it's a different stance. Is that you got the Bruce Wayne Batman storyline there, but you've also got the Dark Knight Batman, anyone can be Batman storyline, and the fact that, you know, to the people of Gotham, maybe Batman's been gone for 8 years, no one knows what happened, blah blah. He actually had his name trashed. But if you look at the end of Dark Knight Rises, his name has been restored. There's a statue to him now. So and it looks like he's going to continue with someone like Joseph Gordon-Levitt taking over the mantle. So in essence, gone from the pit at the end of the second movie. In a way, the symbol, what he stood for has risen, and the persona of Batman is continuing and has risen in people's minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going up. He was physically going up. He was rising on that platform. At the end.
Fade to black.
Fade to black.
I think there was something I noticed throughout the three was Bruce Wayne as a character I thought was quite weak, and wasn't dynamic enough. He was always kind of arriving, probably in the first one, always arriving with like these girls on his arms. He was at the parties. I didn't like him as a character. He was kind of arrogant, but not smooth, not charming. He had no sort of dynamic to his character. He just was kind of this ass, and then he was cool when he was Batman, And I think that was also a weakness throughout the movies. As Bruce Wayne, he didn't really have much depth to him, I found.
I would disagree, but you go.
I think he, as an actor and as the director, they took an angle on it and they went for it. So from the beginning, he's always been the kind of bumbling idiot in a way, Bruce Wayne, from a kind of society's point of view.
Yeah,
billionaire, playboy. Actually, when he's in situations, he acts naive or stupid about stuff. And that's a direction that the characters wanted to go. Whereas, the actor and director wanted to go. But I mean, whereas in the comics or even the animated series and Bruce Wayne's a far more kind of upstanding citizen.
Yes.
So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just a creative decision.
Yeah.
From the way it came across.
Fair enough.
And definitely was weak, Bruce Wayne, in the third one especially. Very fragile character, and I found that quite interesting actually.
I like the fragility of the character and that sort of inner that dialogue within himself. But just going back to what Dave said earlier, I think for a Batman film, he wasn't in it very much, and I know you're talking about the symbol being what carried through in his absence, but then we were following Sergeant Blake or Officer Blake, and I felt when watching, I thought this is an amazing film, but a lot of the time in that whole hour section in the middle, I thought I could be watching anything now. It doesn't bar the references to the Batman returning. This could be anything else, So that's just what I was thinking regarding his absence. I think we handled it quite well there.
I think going back to Bruce Wayne, I would disagree in saying I think he's a very interesting character, especially in Batman Begins. Because in Batman Begins, you've got the whole tortured child, boy, parents gone, whole fear of bats thing playing into him. He's driven by this, anger and this vengeful kind of thing, and this thirst for justice, and and making sure people don't suffer how he suffered. And then he's in that movie especially, he's battling with should he kill people, should he not kill people. He's figuring that out. He's in essence he's this confused, conflicted young guy who will have very personal chats with guys like Alfred and what's her name, Rachel, Katie Holmes' character Rachel, but then to society puts on the whole I am Bruce Wayne. So I felt he was very layered, because it's not just Batman and Bruce Wayne, but you had Batman and then you had Bruce Wayne, the playboy who's falling asleep in his meetings and who's trying to put on this front. Then you've got the actual guy underneath that who's the really broken, tormented guy who really wants good. So it's almost like I felt he had these layers of masks. It was Batman, then society Bruce Wayne, then personal Bruce Wayne. Alfred
I think I'm just referring to the direction of that. I don't like that choice that he was maybe that playboy who fell asleep in meetings. I thought that was it wasn't really believable for me, and I think I would have preferred something a bit more believable.
I think what Carl kind of mentioned already, but what made that good for me, the whole idiot kind of persona, was it created those layers where
no, it did.
Because Rachel even says to him in the first one that's his mask, is this persona that he puts on, not the mask Batman. It's like he said that the real Bruce Wayne is hidden below all these layers.
Yeah.
And I found that quite interesting also because he's this orphan, not orphan actually, but he lost his parents. And Alfred's taking care of him.
And that's the definition of orphan.
Definition. Let's cut that.
That's the definition of orphan.
Sorry. What I meant is he's not like Blake. He's not going through foster parents but also in some way he's going to be he's going to have a skewed perspective of the world because he hasn't had parents that have risen him up, from childhood or at least later in childhood. So he's going to have issues in different ways, and he's going to be fragile in different ways. So if he's this kind of like the cartoons portray him, if he's this very refined gentleman, then it kind of doesn't make sense. He's supposed to be troubled. He's a kid who lost his parents at an early age. He's just, like Kyle was saying, he's battling with trying to figure out like who he is and what he needs to do and how he fights injustice.
I think also Nolan, like from the beginning, since I think Nolan started making the Batman films, he's always said he's kind of making his own like world of Batman. Like there's other things, even with this film, especially as I did a bit more research in other films, there are majority of it rings true to the comics. Like there are a few things that kind of Nolan's kind of twisted and put into his own little way, like taking bits and made it himself. But he's always said like it's my. Why are you smiling so much? He always says it's his own world of Batman. Like he's not trying to stay directly true to the comics, trying to stay directly true to everything. He's kind of taking what he like to start like almost like the material, but then like twisting into the kind of world to make it a bit more realistic. I think if he was like in the comics, like he grows up to be Batman, but he's this great like leader of his company, this great upstanding citizen. Almost just like feels there's almost no motivation for Batman then. If he's kind of just this completely great person throughout the entire time, he's almost just Batman for the sake of like I need something to do at night. So I think he's like this twisted kind of guy who's like tormented and has got so much more like to focus on than normal. I think that gives a lot more justification for Batman almost.
Yeah, it's far more interesting. It's like the Michael Keaton. You think the Michael Keaton and the Val Kilmer and the George Clooney versions of it. You know what I mean? They're pretty bland.
Yeah.
Hanging with Bruce Wayne in those scenes in those movies was just actually I didn't care. Just give me to Batman. Whereas I loved hanging with Bruce Wayne. I was like, give me more Bruce Wayne. That's cool. Like I can handle more Bruce Wayne.
You can see them compensating for the bland personalities of the previous films with all those fancy outfits that they wore. They got quite colourful.
It's like we can't do anything dramatic. Let's just blow everything else into excess.
Yeah.
The last point of maybe the story is the pacing. Anyone have any thoughts on the pacing? You know, there's been a couple of complaints, like the film started off very slow and maybe rushed towards the end, and there was maybe different pacing compared to the other two movies. Any thoughts on that?
I thought it should rush towards the end because there's a nuclear bomb about to go off.
So I think if the pace increases at the end, it shows you the urgency of like what's happening. Unless you're talking about when the bomb's like done, subsided, then kind of all the dramatic bits kind of goes, okay, bomb's finished, end. Like if that kind of goes a bit quicker, maybe it's a bit. I don't really remember how quick things happen after the bomb, to be honest. You guys watched it quite recently, maybe you can comment more on that, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it was.
I thought the pacing was amazing. I mean, 2 hours 45 minutes. I remember watching The Dark Knight, which completely blew me away when I watched it in the cinema. It was 2 hours 30.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I was like, sure, this is quite a long movie. Going into the Rises, I knew it was even longer, but it gets to the end of the movie and it's over, and you like think, flip, to handle 2 hours 45 minutes so well. There's a good pace.
Yeah,
I really felt like time went by quickly.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah.
That was good.
One thing I wanted to add, maybe it's just a personal thing, but I hated how they how they changed the location from a very Chicago-based
to
set to.
It was shot in Pittsburgh then.
Was it?
Yeah.
The Dark Knight.
It was shot everywhere. Like
yeah,
you could see.
Dark Knight had and Batman Begins had a very Chicago feel. The buildings were very Chicago. This was, I felt like I was in New York, and the Gotham of this movie didn't reflect the Gotham of the last movies. And I thought Nolan's maybe taking us for idiots that you can kind of just change locations and we won't notice the difference. I mean, the Gotham in in the
first one. With the
that sort of like shanty town squatter camp area. I mean, that was like almost central to what Gotham was, and there was none of that in this one. So it was like, what's up with that?
There wasn't really any of that in Dark Knight either.
I thought the bigger difference was between the first one and the second two for me. Like I know this was shot a lot, well, a fair amount in New York. So you are correct. For me, this was more in line with The Dark Knight. Then Batman Begins was to me the one that was the more stylized, more
fair enough. But I felt in Dark Knight I could be in just a different part of the city to Batman Begins. Right. Batman Begins kind of went from the squatter camp area to the like big high-rise buildings. Where this was like we had the wide shots of the city. I think that gave it away. It was like the rivers, and you could be like, that's obviously New York. There's no place in the world that looks like that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one, it could have been anywhere, but just because I sort of recognize Chicago.
Yeah.
I think that there's some intentionality to it as well. Maybe I'm reading into it and giving him too much credit. But like the first one, crime was on the highest point.
Yeah.
Batman is introduced into society, and there's a change within society. And you get this kind of sodium orange light world, very dirty streets, lights shining through. And then you get into the second one, and there's this blue world almost, like this kind of an interesting way of portraying the city. Everything's featured in the day as opposed to everything in the night in the first one.
Yeah.
And you've got this Joker that rocks up on the scene trying to shake people from, in some ways, their apathy, which Bane did as well in the third one. And then the journey goes to this white city. Like, did you notice that? It was orange light, then it was blue light, and then white, like natural light shine through.
Yeah.
And it was quite an interesting journey that they took from a creative point of view. And in some ways, the first one was about the slums, the underground, crime, and then it was all brought to the surface in the second one, and then ultimately it became like a peaceful time in the city and that kind of thing. And it was almost like this natural kind of light that was reflecting that. But actually what Bane was saying as well was that this is all like a facade. There's still corruption, there's still these things. Gotham is a city that needs to be reckoned.
What are you? I'm Gotham's reckoning.
And
Yes.
but what I'm getting at of the location of the city is they showed more of the above the ground stuff, not so much of the slums. Actually,
the cleanness.
This is an upstanding city. We're rocking, we're rolling, but still there is corruption. There is those problems.
I suppose.
So in some way, like I completely get that there's certain practicalities to filming something.
Maybe it's just because I Wikipedia'd and I realised they shot it all in Chicago.
Yeah. Like,
I know they shot it all in New York and like that.
Okay, we chatted about a lot of stuff. Let's chat about.
Let's get into some characters.
Let's get into some characters. Yeah. We've kind of chatted with Bruce Wayne, Batman, so he can come up again, as we chat. But let's talk about probably the most important character in the film and the most hyped character. What a lovely, lovely character.
Kill me. Your punishment must be more severe.
What a lovely voice I'm doing. Bane, obviously. Let's chat about Bane. Ranter, the first thing I saw on your profile the moment you left the cinema was, okay, Dark Knight Rises was cool, but Bane can't touch the Joker, hence Dark Knight is the better movie.
True.
Thoughts?
I think Bane's voice was awesome, but firstly, I think he spoke way too much. I think they should have treated him in such a way that he spoke only when he had to, and he wasn't having a whole speech whenever he got the moment to. Also, I think Bane, there wasn't enough fighting between him and Batman. So yeah, he was superior, stronger, but we only saw that in sort of one instance in the sewer where he destroys his back. Bane, I think, was cool, but as I think guys will mention at the end, he went down far too easily, and I think he didn't have that sort of intellectual capabilities that the Joker had. The Joker was creepy and sinister. Bane was just this big, scary brute that when you rocked up, you wanted to get out of his way and listen to what he said. But the Joker, watching him, I felt scared in many scenes. Whereas Bane, I wasn't scared. I was just like, this is entertaining. But so I think he definitely wasn't as good as the Joker in almost every aspect.
I honestly don't think you can compare Bane to the Joker. I think they're two.
I think you have to.
No,
they're the two villains of the films. You have to compare them.
You can compare them as maybe a villain itself, but as a character, as their motivation, as to what they do, how they achieve it, it's completely.
Yeah, fair
completely
enough.
different.
But I'm comparing the villain in Dark Knight and I'm comparing the villain in Dark Knight Rises, and the villain in Dark Knight by far was a bit. Even though they're different, the villain in Dark Knight was a better villain. That's the bottom
Then
line.
also touching on your point where you think Bane spoke too much, I think it was the way Nolan executed Bane as a character was brilliant. Because from what people the experience of Bane, if you don't know the comics that people have from Batman and Robin, where Bane is like this stupid, retarded guy who just kind of boom. You think he's like this stupid muscle idiot guy, but where in reality in the comics he's a genius. He's like a planner. He's intellectually and physically matches Batman more than any other villain that they have within the Batman universe. And I think if you don't make him talk enough, you're still going to think he's just this overpowering brute. The way Nolan made him talk, it revealed his intelligence. So I'm going to just jump on the comic book character quickly. In terms of Bane within the comics and the way Nolan's portrayed him, there are a lot of inconsistencies within it. In the comics, Bane is born in prison, not Talia al Ghul as they represented within the movie. He's Spanish actually, and he wears like a luchador mask. And when the way Batman defeats him in Dark Knight Rises, he breaks his little mask thing, and Talia al Ghul re-screws it. Kind of.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, almost the way you say that he defeats him too easily is, it sucks, but it's true to the comics. Within.
But I thought we just 5 minutes ago we spoke about how Nolan was reinterpreting the comics.
No.
So it doesn't matter
not
if it's
completely reinterpreting. Just taking bits and pieces and twisting it slightly.
Okay, I haven't seen any of the comics or read of the comics, and so going as I think most viewers and consumers of this trilogy, they're not going to know the background, the backstory, and so then I watched it and so he went down too easy. Even though I mean maybe some people say, well, it was true to the comics, that was amazing. For the majority of the consumers, I think it was a weak.
I think the thing is, he was already made powerless by the fact that Talia is actually the main villain.
That's kind of just undercut
Bane is a
almost.
gimp. To then make a massive deal about his death, you'd be like, cool, but you wasted 5 minutes of my time because he's actually not the main problem. Here's the threat over here, Talia and the bomb. So I don't know if they could have... maybe it would have been a structural thing if they had rewritten it in a different way, or Bane went down earlier and the reveal came after.
She was a waste of time, though, let's just be honest. She was an absolute waste of time. The first hour or 2 hours of the film you're watching, you say, who is she? I'm thinking, what are you doing in Batman? Like, who are you? You have no relevance. I don't know what this backstory is or the little subplot going on. Then they kind of hook up together. You're like, what is going on? And then at the end, it's like, oh, wait, she is the evil, maestro. And you're like, no, make Bane the bad guy right until the end. I thought she was a waste of time.
In a way, had been the case, yeah.
Yeah, she was the worst character for me in the whole film. As soon as I saw her, I was like, who is this character? What is she doing? Is she going to be like his wife in the future? Who is she going to be? Because I don't know what purpose she has at all.
Yeah.
Besides the whole fusion thing, handing over the Wayne enterprise to such a person. But that was kind of like such a subplot, not worth going down.
See, again,
you just said that Bane was the one who climbed out of the pit in the comics, right?
Yeah.
To hear that and Nolan twist it around, that's not cool. How can you take the comic story of Bane coming out of the pit and then use that as a twist for the character reveal? That's not cool.
Yeah, well, some of the things like within Nolan, it's weird. It is kind of weird. Like, it does frustrate me a bit because within the movie, he's stayed true to a lot of things within the comic, but then he's taken other certain things like that and twisted it. Like within the comics, Bane is almost a henchman to Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne, they do in the comics, they're in love. Ra's al Ghul offers him, like in Batman Begins, to lead the League of Shadows, like with Talia, and then he says no, and then Bane becomes the heir, and then but kind of like the heir with under Talia, and then almost becomes Talia's like henchman, but still almost leading the attack, but like having Talia like the main thing, which Nolan represented within the film. But I do agree that I think if they would bring that into the film, they should have brought it in either a lot earlier or at the very end. Like where they did, to me, it did undercut Bane.
Yeah.
So I agree that with Talia, like Sunny pitching up and revealing that she's the puppet master with Bane. I agree that throughout the film and the part, it does undercut Bane, kind of almost what he is and what people thought that he was and what he perceives. But I think the nice thing about it as well, kind of in reference back to Dark Knight and how Bane then differs from the Joker within it, it reveals Bane's humanity at the same time. Like you see through the flashbacks within the pit, he's like his humanity is there, like he's defending Talia, he's trying to protect her and stuff like that. And then also because like the Joker, like there's no humanity. He's there just to cause chaos. He's just there to destroy things. Where Bane does have a bit more of a bigger reason. He's revealed, like within the Talia thing, his humanity is revealed. He's not just this guy who's there to cause like chaos and havoc and just destroy things. He's actually like he has a purpose, like and goals, even though it's like pretty much the opposite of what Batman's is. But he's not just there to just cause chaos. And with the Talia thing, it reveals like the humanity of the character instead of him being just this guy who's there to just destroy things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they revealed her earlier on, somehow, that they were in cahoots, he wouldn't have lost so much street cred as it were at the end.
I just think Nolan's timing with it was a bit off.
It's kind of like promising something and then taking it away, and then there's just that disappointment afterwards.
Yeah.
And like, he's such a driving force in the movie. It's like having the Joker, and then at the end, somebody else is in charge of the Joker.
Exactly,
which kind of could work because he is a bit of a wild dog kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like you can't do that to the main villain in the movie. It's just going to completely undermine it. If his role was already set from the beginning, you accept that and you move on from there.
Yeah.
But if it's just this like, oh no, actually he's not the guy in charge, it's kind of like
No,
I thought Catwoman was amazing in the trailer. And then
in the
film.
trailer.
in the trailer, she was great.
For that like 2 seconds in the trailer, she was great, and then in the film, I don't know what she was doing there.
I thought she was great.
Really? I loved it.
I enjoyed
Why
her.
was she there?
I think
though?
she was well
She was like
cast.
an aid to Batman. I don't want Batman to have an aid. I know he's like a destroyed character, but why do you need her? She didn't do anything. It was a waste of time. And she was working for the evil guys, who then got shot apparently or something. There was that sort of like backstory subplot about who she was working for, and then all of a sudden Bane, I think, just kills him. So it was like, what was that all about? I didn't
Oh, when
know.
she was getting the fingerprints for Bruce
Yes,
Wayne,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
What was that all about?
I think there were two driving forces for her as a character. The first one was that whole identity change thing. She wanted a new start, so that was that kind of corporate head of part of the Wayne Enterprises
with
board.
that thing she was trying to get her hands on.
And then the League of Shadows obviously had more and more of a presence in the situation, and she saw this Bane character and all these League of Shadow guys, and was actually fearful. Because a lot in the movie, like the second half, she just wants to go away because she knows she can't defeat these people, so she wants to run away from her problems.
But I think that what I'm saying is I don't think Batman Dark Knight didn't need her. They could have made an epic, as good, even better. I think it would have been a better film without her. We could have focused more on Bruce Wayne, more on Batman and Alfred.
I think we'd explored those though. I think we'd almost run their course in the first two movies. Like,
And now we could have brought it to this epic climax. I mean, Alfred was hardly in it until right at that scene when he it's like very emotional and he leaves. Morgan Freeman was hardly in it. Okay, yeah, he wasn't a big character at all. But I think it kind of, the whole time I'm thinking, where is she going with this? What's she doing? And then at the end I thought, well, what was her point? She was just kind of just jumped in the film.
I think what Catwoman actually did was she drove the whole story thread of him trying to start afresh. She was an instigator of that as well. She was somebody that wanted to start afresh. He knew the idea of living a double life, as it were.
Yeah.
She's this woman who doesn't want to live this life. She's found in this situation. In some ways, she enjoys it, and she's a bit dodgy.
But Jason Gordon-Levitt could have been that person. We've already got him, and then he could have driven.
Fair
that
enough,
well.
but I think
And the
I
cop.
think it didn't take away. It didn't detach from his story arc, because she, in a way, was pushing that whole concept across.
Yeah.
as well.
No, I
so in
understand.
some ways, it was a support
I think it
to
highlights.
his story.
I think it highlights the different aspects. I think as
I
guys
just
often
think
say,
he got too much airtime. I think Batman should have got more airtime and
My-
more action time.
My thoughts are I think the characters in these Batman movies, especially these Nolan ones, they all the side characters, the villains included, kind of highlight different aspects of Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? There's each person he has an interaction with, he interacts very differently with Batman or Bruce Wayne, and they really, like as you said, John, that pushes his Bruce Wayne's "I want a clean slate, I want a new life" thing, which enhances what Alfred was also saying. And then seeing them together at the end, let's not chat about actually seeing them right now, but the fact that they are together, it sits well with your soul. The fact that, okay, cool, they both got a clean slate. And, we can chat about it should have been more ambiguous later. But and I also think, you got this Batman universe, you've got 3 films. To do another film where you just use the same characters again, it was an opportunity. I think it was an opportunity to bring in a lot more of the Batman universe. Otherwise, you have this whole Batman trilogy, and you only explore Alfred and Batman, which you've done already in 2 movies. You know what I mean?
And the whole thing, again, like I said earlier, of him wanting to hand over the reins. He's not the only one doing this thing. He's just trying to create a symbol. He's trying to bring justice to the world. And
I felt that was cheap. I felt that was the studios going, let's milk this gravy train. Let's put the symbol that he's going to hand over. Everyone's going to be so amped. Oh, Robin's coming. I don't want Robin. Robin was always the loser of the comics in front of my mind.
All right, let's chat Robin.
I don't want him. I don't want nothing. I want Batman, and I want him to end. I want Nolan to be done. I love Nolan. He's made his mark. He's done an epic job. But now to kind of go, oh wait, there could be more. It's like, oh, don't string me along because I'm gonna come along for the ride.
But more importantly, cool, the studio can do whatever they want with the storyline, and maybe they do have an influence. But just remember, it's about Batman knowing that, hey, actually Gotham's in good hands. I can leave. I don't have to, because it's almost like it's irresponsible for him to have this ability and for him to just go and leave it after sorting out the situation.
Yeah.
Not that responsible, with
From
great
that
power comes great
perspective, I
responsibility.
understand.
So
I
in a way,
understand.
he needs somebody to hand it over so that he can leave and live his life that he wants to live. So you needed that. I get the studio might exploit that. They're going to create a little offshoot maybe. But you need that.
I hear both points
for the
as well.
storyline, for the character.
For the storyline, it works, but my initial reaction wasn't that. It was they want another one.
I was when he was introduced as Robin. As he's like, oh, you should use your real name. As I said, it's like I know where this is going. But the way he incorporated, I was not happy with. Like having his actual name as Robin, I thought was just it was poor because Robin is like oh, Bruce Wayne, you should use your real name, Batman. It's kind of like Robin is whose like identity is as like a crime fighter. It's not who like his name is. Like if they'd used like, because throughout the comics there've been 3 different Robins. There've been Dick Grayson, Tim Blake, and Jason Todd. If they said either one of those names, like guys would be like, cool. Like that's cool. Like, oh, okay, that's who he is. Okay, he's obviously going to be Robin. Or although Robin is always to me is always a sidekick of Batman. So the fact that Batman's not going to be there, then there shouldn't be Robin. Like Robin, like in the comics, Robin, when Batman leaves, he becomes Nightwing, like a crime fighter, but a completely separate guy to Batman.
Right.
So being Robin, there needs to be Batman. Like Robin is a sidekick. He's not a solo hero. He doesn't go out fighting crime by himself. But the one thing that I found interesting is
And Robin's a lame name. Let's just be honest.
It is. But the one thing I found,
She liked the name. The lady behind the counter.
it's true. The way, like, also the incorporation of like John Blake's character. It's an unfamiliar name within the comics, but the characteristics, excuse me, of all 3 Robins that they've been, they incorporated into that one character. Like they've been, like, Dick Grayson was a cop, Jason Todd was an orphan who lived in a boys' home, and Tim Drake within the comics. It's lame, we hate it within the movie, but within the comics, he was able to deduce Batman's identity, and he went to Batman, like, in a time of need when Gotham needed him. So it's lame within the thing, but within the comics, it's true. And the way that Nolan took the 3 main Robins, their characters, and incorporated into John Blake, I really liked. But just the fact of his name was Robin, I was a bit unhappy with.
I think that's amazing, actually. The fact that I think that's a really cool Nolan thing. That's for the diehard Batman fans, that's epic. I think the Robin thing. You know what? I'm okay with it. The Ranter was saying earlier. Most of the world aren't diehard comic book fans. They're not going to know things. The diehard comic book fans. I mean, the non-diehard comic book fans aren't going to know that Dick Grayson was Robin or.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch.
Do you know what I mean? It's a nice touch. And for me personally, what other way? Like as I was saying, they bring in Catwoman because they want to explore other little, just touch on little other aspects of the Batman universe that they don't get the opportunity to do. And Robin was probably more essential than Catwoman in the Batman lore, from what I understand. It's always Batman and Robin, Batman and Robin. So for them to work it in such a subtle way, for me, is better than having this. Rather have him as that kind of thing than a sidekick.
No, I agree that they, like, even when they started making the Batman trilogy, Christian Bale said, I will not do this if Robin is in the movies.
Yeah.
I thought Blake was my second least favorite character after Miranda Tate.
Did you like Liam Neeson? That man destroys every movie he sets his foot on.
Whoa.
I hate you so much.
I hate the Ranter too.
I want to
But
take your
welcome,
blog
feel
and burn it
welcome.
to the
Right,
ground.
we'll keep it clean. We'll go back to Blake. But no, just like for me, what the problem I had with Blake is from the get-go, he's this kind of take charge guy, and he's actually a young guy, and he's supposedly this hothead. He didn't once fly off the handle. They're like, the guy's like trying to go, he's like, cool guys, let's chase him down the tunnel or whatever, and the guy's like, who's this hothead? Get him off the scene. Like, he's just trying to make stuff happen. You guys are just apathetic, caught
He's
up
not
in
Kirk. He's
your
not
world
JT
of
Kirk.
yeah, you're caught up in your world of peace, and all you want is peace, and you want to ignore the stuff. He's just trying to like go and get the stuff, and like he's a driver. What's that?
But is that his fault?
No, what I'm saying is the character.
Yeah.
Like he's supposed to be this hothead or whatever how they describe it, but he's not. He's like trying to make stuff happen. But like, sorry, I was just kind of challenging their perspective. But for me, the problem was that from the get-go, he's like calling shots almost like in some way they're kind of like, oh, who's this guy? But actually, they don't really do much, and he just takes charge and like he's a huge hero of the story. Like when Batman's not there, he's one of the driving forces, like keeping things going.
Yeah, I felt
But,
like
like,
watching one of his movies.
yeah, but he kind of just steps into this role so naturally. Like he's supposed to be a young guy. He's supposed to also be gone through foster parents, angry kid. He's supposed to have issues. Like he's so level-headed. He like operates, does stuff. For me, that was so frustrating. I was like,
He was like the
seriously,
perfect
Bru?
goody character.
I was like, Bru, put on about 40 pounds of weight,
Yeah.
and then you can be Batman because you're better than that guy. Like seriously. Like really, he did so much stuff, and I was like, "Come on, like let him at least step into the role during the movie." He just took charge, boom, 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 get stuff done. Like he was too good. He needed to kind of grow through the movie, you know. For me, that was so frustrating.
Can say one little niggly thing that I never noticed until someone pointed out to me that I now agree. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like at the end, he's there to replace Batman, to fight crime, to be like a fighter. But there's one scene where he goes to the construction yard or whatever, and he's attacked by 2 guys, and he shoots one of them. He like looks at his gun like horror and throws it down, like he's like, what the stuff just happened? And he's supposed to be like this hothead crime fighter kind of guy, but like he's so horrified by this one little act of like necessary violence.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit in with like his character, like who he's supposed to be. Like if he's so horrified by violence, like, oh, I've just shot a man, Otherwise, I was going to die. What have I done? But then he's supposed to come like this crime fighter at the end. Like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't fit together.
It's more in conflict for me with what John was saying, the hothead. Everyone else has opinions and dialogue about him. That doesn't fit in at all, Okay, well, on that note, let's just wrap this up in the next couple of minutes. Let's chat inconsistencies, plot holes, the ending, what we think of that, and then, maybe
I think Nolan watched season 1 of 24, and where Jack Bauer is on the plane. Season 2, actually.
Season 2.
Yeah, he's on the plane and he's flying the nuclear bomb over the Nevada desert, and then his superior is actually sick, terminally ill, so he decides to carry the plane. Basically, he flies the bomb into the desert and it explodes. And I think Nolan was maybe tired or hungover and couldn't decide on an ending, so he just quickly wrote that in. Because that was a horrible ending.
I agree, because like, it was almost confusing, because you kind of like, how did Batman escape? When did he actually apply the autopilot and leave the plane? Because you have like where he blows up the building and then kind of goes over. But the problem is, after I think I could be wrong, but after he blows up the building, he's kind of like in the open then. There's still a cutaway of him in the thing flying.
I know, I looked after that, yeah.
Where did he escape? I don't understand. Did he suddenly was it so far in the distance we couldn't see a little speck drop into the water to like his bat sub and go away?
But more than that, just flying a nuclear bomb in a plane over the ocean.
That's not unfeasible.
It's not unfeasible, but it's been done every time before. For Nolan and for Batman, this is reworking this whole franchise. Everything's almost original, never seen before in so many ways. And then it's like a cheap ending. I was like, come on.
I don't know,
Even a nuclear bomb. I mean, we've seen nuclear bombs and everything. Make it biological, something a little less, that we see.
Again, to be the devil advocate, nuclear bomb accurate to the comics.
Beautiful.
Don't like the comments.
Never
seen them.
I think the nice thing about the nuclear bomb was that it actually came from the whole energy thing, which obviously was Bruce Wayne initially trying to do a good thing. And
yes,
blah,
okay,
blah,
I
blah,
understand.
blah. So there was a bit of a payoff for that, but
Still makes sense.
I don't understand how the hell he got away. To me, it's amazing. John, you're saying at least when there's 2 bats at the end, there might be multiple bats where they say the autopilot was fixed, but where the hell he ejected or dropped the bomb?
I think. Sorry, just quickly. I think there's either 2 sides to this. Either Nolan got a bit confused, wasn't sure what he's doing, or he's just done his typical "I'm going to be ambiguous and people will be talking about this for ages" kind of thing. Like little pin Inception. You never know what happens. I think
should have done that though at the end. Yeah.
No, see, I agree. Now with the ending, I think
right.
I kind of liked it. I think it should have been ordered differently. I think it ended like the very final scene thing you see is John Blake rising up. I think that should be the second to last thing. Then it should have cut to Alfred sitting down. You see a little grin on his face. That's it.
I think the ending was easy to do. You have John Blake swinging into the cave. He goes through the waterfall. He swings in. Okay, obviously he's at the Wayne Manor cave, right? Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
We don't need to see any more. Then you go straight to Alfred and have smiley face. Inception,
yeah, I agree that the
spinning pin.
Yeah, no.
Boom.
Yeah, smiley face, and you show the back of that guy.
No,
because that's what he did before. In his memory, you see the back of his head, and you go, "Oh, no, it's not it."
No, but the problem is he was with Signa Kyle, so to see the back of him, you would have seen the front of her, unless you use his head covering it up. I agree. I agree. The ambiguity of just he sits down, he smiles. Like, why is he smiling? Is he there? Isn't he spinning top end?
Which means you're giving too much credit to Nolan, because you're saying that he intentionally perhaps put the ambiguity in there so people would talk about it. No, he didn't put the ambiguity in there.
With the story nuclear bomb one, maybe, yeah.
No, he didn't. He did it unintentionally. If he was, I don't think he was meaning to do it, because he showed Selina Kyle with him at the end, and if he should have just ended on Alfred.
No, I agree with that.
I'll play devil's advocate on this one. I think I agree on the. It's a more Nolan. It's a more classier. It's a more whatever you want to call it thing where you end on Alfred's face. For me. Okay, so firstly, we all know, whoever was present at that screening, that I was so caught up in the emotions of it that I wanted to be sick because I was just loving it so much, which is very odd, which is very strange and embarrassing. But for me, I was so torn that Bruce Wayne was gone that I was like, don't play games with me here, Nolan. If Alfred's going to see him, I just want to know. For me, this is just a personal thing. I was just like, I just need to know that he's alive. I can't leave. I need the security of it. Just for my own personal well-being, I needed the security. Bruce Wayne's face, he's alive. Thank goodness.
I was the same, but as soon as I knew, I was like, stuff you I shouldn't have known. Like,
Yeah.
In the moment, I was like, I was satisfied. Like, yes, he's alive. And then I was like, no, man, why did you tell me that?
But
It made me...
intellectually, it would have been classier. I
Yeah.
agree. But emotionally, I was more thinking. But I disagree with the ordering thing. My point on that would be, I think if you had John Blake, or however, if he's just in the cave, all that little thing's rising, and then you cut to Alfred, and then you cut to because you got to remember, these always end with the title, bam, The Dark Knight Rises. If it went from Alfred's face to The Dark Knight Rises, as opposed to John Blake,
But he's not the Dark Knight, though.
But that's the thing. He's
that's the
going
thing,
to be.
he may be.
He's going to be.
That's
I
the
think.
thing,
I
there
think
is
in this world, he's not going to
No
be.
Dark Knight Rises in this film. That's my point. No one
No,
rises. Who
I
rises?
don't think he's going to be Nightwing. I don't think he's going to be Thing. They reinstate the bat symbol at the end. You know, he goes and clink, clink, clink. I think he's going to. In this version, he's going to be Batman.
My most frustrating thing was the beautiful little bat symbol light that he makes for Jim Gordon. When did he find time to do that?
There's lots of things.
It's like when does he find time to paint petrol on the giant bridge instead of like
Honestly,
these are all the plot holes within the film.
nuclear bomb is going off, people. Cool. Firstly, I'm going to have this awesome introduction to everybody on the ice, which no one can walk on because they fall through the ice.
Batman can glide
And
across
he
it.
weighs more than most, the average person. I'm going to do this petrol thing up on the top, which actually wasn't very well constructed. I don't know how it's going to defy gravity and actually keep its shape, and not just run down. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a beautiful backlight for Jim Gordon that when I leave and dummy everybody who think that I'm dead, he's going to have this beautiful little light, and he's going to be like, oh wait, how did he put the light on the roof? That was broken.
He's also going to have time to leave all those things for for John Blake. He's going to leave the bag because he can't do that after he's dead because everyone thinks he's dead the next day.
Or maybe did Alfred do some of those things?
I don't think Alfred. No, I don't think so.
Alfred left. Why would he help him on some little random task?
That's true. And Alfred thought he was dead.
He's like,
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. That's true.
No, I think there's a lot of.
Can I think now that I'm reassessing after discussions, kind of remembering what, as much as the ranter hates this, what I know from the comics. There are points in the comics, like especially within the comics, when Batman's back gets broken, and it's reverting, but not really reverting. If that makes sense. When Batman's back is broken and he goes back to train, in his absence, Dick Grayson as Robin becomes Batman. So the symbol is still of Batman, it's still there. So I think maybe now that you've said he's not Robin Nightwing, he's going to be Batman. I think I maybe agree with that. So I'm kind of now reverting back to ending on John Blake. I love the imagery of him rising. I thought it was. I think now I do agree with you in terms of the order.
Okay, let's rate the film and compare.
Final thoughts. Like little. Just give us a little blurb.
I've got some more potholes. I mean, the list is never ending.
All right. Listen.
I mean that bike, guys. Seriously, the bike. It's got more firepower than the bat and those little tank Batmobiles put together. Seriously, bro. That thing, the tanks that go pew pew, and it's like a little bit of smoke. This bike shoots, and it knocks the tank onto its back. It shoots 100 cars, of which 10 disintegrate, and makes a perfect hole for people to get out of the city through the tunnel. Seriously,
that's true. Yeah, it's
ridiculous,
and it's real. I'm still I don't know if it happened in Dark Knight Rises.
So you must have hated Avengers then. Oh wait.
No, it was so ridiculous.
Wait, are we going to quickly compare this to other superhero films?
I think we'll probably leave it.
Do you think we just
leave it? I think. Okay, final thoughts.
Are we doing pros and cons or?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just got one more. Guys, I'm sorry. One more plot flaw, which was probably the worst of them all. The scene with Bane in the jail in Morocco, or wherever it was from the ancient land, and Batman or Bruce Wayne when he explains why he did it. Okay, cool. Bruce, I'm going to break your back in the sewer in New York / Gotham. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to travel with you to the pit, put you there, wait for you to wake up after however long, and then I'm going to explain the whole process to you.
And then I'm going to catch a plane back to Gotham.
I care about it so much. Then I'm going to catch a plane back to Gotham and continue with my thing. That's what he did. Did he get on a plane, at the airport with his mask on? What did he do? Did he wear his helmet?
Well, he's in control of Gotham. He can probably do whatever he wanted.
I think there's a lot of those. I felt there was a lot of scenes like that, which just kind of felt a little staged and a little set
See,
up.
that's what I'm saying.
Compared to the previous Batman movies.
Like what I said in the beginning, I think Nolan was so ambitious with the amount of stuff he tried to incorporate that, he just eventually started, adding things that he thought would be cool, but it just became so unnecessary and just almost, it made some of the plots seem a bit stuffy. Just this is, you maybe thought it was cool, but now it's not making sense. It's just, there's too much in there. Yeah. Like with Dark Knight and Batman Begins, the story was simple, but it was brilliant. Here, I think, if he just left more out and focused more on the important parts, it would have been a lot better. I just think he just tried to do too much.
Yeah, my one thought on things not making sense would be that John Blake scene. I know he mentioned it, and I know it's in the comics. He just kind of understood Batman. But for me, it was just like they just needed a way for this guy to know how Bruce Wayne was Batman, and they just quickly wrote it in and
a
said,
bit more of a specific way.
yeah,
than
it's
just
just,
like,
just too
I
like
saw it in your
really. I
eyes.
just saw it in your eyes. I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Anyway, okay. Final thoughts or pros and cons and final thoughts. Maybe just go around the circle. The Renter. Why don't you take us away?
Do you have any pros?
Are there any pros?
Honestly, I think I haven't seen a film like that in a long time in terms of the epicness and the scale and from a filmmaking perspective, like that intro was awesome. Not as good as Dark Knight, obviously, but the massive scenes with the extras and the police, just the scale. I think we haven't seen that in a long time. I can't actually think of much, off the top of my head that compares. And as a Batman film, yes, it had to deal with the mission task of solving the ending and all that sort of thing. And I guess it did that job quite well. But for me, it definitely wasn't as good as Dark Knight. I didn't enjoy it as much. I love the epicness, but as a Batman film, I think it wasn't nearly as good as the middle one. So, 7 out of 10, 7 or 8.
That's pretty high.
7.
Despite I think the negative and like all we're going, I did enjoy the film. I remember I enjoyed it. It was the same with Dark Knight. It got to the end of the 2.5 hours, and I wasn't like, wow, this has been long. This just ends. Like it ends. I was like, oh, it's ending. Okay, cool. But like I do think it was. Like I said, I did enjoy it. I also give it maybe about a 7 out of 10. But I do think it's the weakest in the trilogy. You just don't like Liam Neeson, who was awesome in Batman Begins. So it's kind of just
Liam Neeson.
This
Batman is one of his better jobs.
We can do a whole podcast on Liam Neeson.
Excommunication like Bane, bro.
Liam Neeson and Nicolas Cage are probably the two worst.
Nicolas
You
Cage,
can't even
granted.
compare them. Nicolas Cage is
They are horrible. They're both.
No. Have you
This one, Taken is worst movie.
Who made Bangkok dangerous?
we can't compare.
I want to
Nicolas
throw
Cage.
this shit at you.
Alright,
Taken is one of Neeson's greatest works.
Taken.
It's an amazing film.
Okay, we're gonna end.
We're gonna end
We have a special podcast where we hate.
for you now.
No, we have to have final thoughts on I think from you and me.
So my final thoughts are emotionally, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great ending, a great journey, a great sort of ending to the trilogy. On my first viewing, there are far too many plot holes and far too many coincidences and these little moments that I think do spoil it. But also for me, I think, as in terms of ending a trilogy, it is one of the hardest things to do. A first movie comes out, everyone sits there and has no idea what to expect. They've got no really idea of where it's going, so they're satisfied. A second movie doesn't have to really end it anyway, so they can go in any direction and you can do it. But when it comes to ending, it's like ending a TV series like Lost. There's only going to be one definitive ending that they're going to put on the screen, and you're not going to please everyone. No one's going to get another opportunity to end it again. So there's some guys who wanted it to end like that, and there's other guys who wanted it to end a different way. And so I think in terms of the way he ended it, I thought he did a great job.
It ended conclusively, which was good.
It ended conclusively.
But there shouldn't have been Catwoman. Bane should have spoken less, and there should have been more Batman.
Trying
and
to
he
get his
should have-
final thoughts in
and he
before
should
we
have done
can.
a lot more Batman stuff rather than be sitting in Morocco.
There's
Alright,
a lot more
John.
ranting to be done, it seems.
John, you ended off.
Okay. Cons, I mean, I don't even have to repeat the plot holes. There are so many. But they are, in many ways, are quite minor and technical.
Yes.
It's living
it's not
in
too
a
bad.
fantastical world here. It's not reality. I completely get that the bike has the firepower of like a battleship. Didn't watch the movie, but I'm sure it's quite close. And I mean, I think Miranda Tate just frustrated me so much. She was a big downer for me. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought he did such a great job. Difficult, like you said, so hard to try and bring all that together, answer all the questions, try to please the comic fans, try to please the average Joe who doesn't know about movies.
Try to please people like the Rant.
Rant.
The ranter cannot be pleased. It's
There's no
impossible.
such thing as pleasing
Cannot.
rent, it's true.
cannot.
One movie I read
Relationship
has
was not
pleasing.
installed. But overall, really enjoyed it. I'd say
got
if
like
I gave a top 3, it would be cool if we gave top 3s. Top 3 order from the trilogy.
Yeah.
Top Dark Knight.
Dark Knight.
That film was
I
perfection.
think it's everyone for Dark Knight. Yeah.
Dark Knight.
That film was perfection. I'm sorry, I was blown away by the movie. Not as much. And if anybody's going to watch the first 2 before going to the Rises, don't do it. Watch Rises first, because
But with the Rises,
you compare them too much and you get too fixated on the overall trilogy.
Or watch him a week or 2 before.
Yeah.
Don't watch
Watch
him the day
Rises,
before.
let it build up.
Rises because it does
nicely.
reference the Begins a few times, and if you haven't watched it not fresh, you kind of
Yeah, I'd say Dark Knight. Then I would say, It's hard. Rises and Begins are on a level playing field.
It's
to me,
hard.
'cause
And
the
I'm
Dark
even a
Knight
big
is-
fan of Begins. I love the amount of Bruce Wayne that you get in that movie. He's the central character. It's all about him. I do love Begins. I'm torn.
Yeah, I go 2-1-3.
2-1-3.
Dark Knight Begins, Rises.
Well, let's leave it there, hey? Thanks for joining us for our first Moviecom podcast. We had a good time. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, for something else. What are we going to do next? Total Recall, we're thinking. Maybe
That's
we'll do
only
Recall
it's only
for Total
3
Recall.
weeks down the line, but we'll get it out as quick as we can.
There
Yeah.
will be ranting.
And
There will be, I'm sure
probably
there will be
ranting.
massive ranting.
Have a good day.
We shall be Total Recall's reckoning.
Yes, I shall break its back.
When you have finished listening to this podcast, you have my permission to die.
I want to break the ranter's back.
I think we need a ranter bashing podcast, I think.
For more podcasts, visit www.moviecom.co.za. And for more film discussions and news updates, like our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/SAMoviecom.